In this section, we will discuss about the definition and types of variables as component of theoretical framework. Since a theoretical framework involves an identification of the network of relationships among the variables considered important to the study of any given problem situation, it is essential to understand what variable means and what the different types of variables are. Let's get back to the theoretical framework illustrations of students' performance, where we have 3 variables and 2 hypotheses. A variable can be defined as anything that can take on differing or varying values, and the values can differ at various times for the same object or person, or at the same time for different objects or person. For example, in this conceptual model, we have GPA as a variable. A student at different semester may have different GPAs, or 2 different students at the same semester may have different GPAs. Thus, we consider GPA as a variable since the value can be varied. Next, learning ability. 2 different people may have different learning abilities. One might be able to understand a certain topic in such short time, while the other cannot. That is the reason why we see learning ability as a variable. And lastly, conductive learning environment. It is also considered as a variable since it can take on differing values, or in this case, is differing situation. Now that you've known what variable means, you might be curious about the notes here. There are dependent, independent, and moderating variables. What are they? Don't worry, we'll get you there. Okay. Now let's talk about the roles or types of variables. In positivist research, there are 4 types of variables that commonly known. 2 are compulsory and the others are optional. The compulsory variables are dependent and independent variable. As for the optional variable roles are moderating and intervening or mediating variable. Please don't get mixed up with these 2. One is moderating and the other is mediating. Okay, moderating and mediating. Okay, now let's discuss them one by one. Dependent variable. The dependent variable is the variable of primary interest to the researcher. For example, an applied researcher wants to increase the performance of organizational members in a particular bank. What would be the dependent variable in this case? Remember, a variable is anything that can take on differing values. And dependent variable is the one that becomes researcher concern. Thus, for this first example, I propose the dependent variable of employee performance, since it is the main interest of the researcher. Let's take another example. A marketing manager wonders why the recent advertisement strategy doesn't work. What would be the dependent variable here? In my opinion, it could be the effectiveness of advertising strategy. The keyword here is that what becomes the primary interest to the researcher. And the next is independent variable. An independent variable is the one that influences the dependent variable in either positive or negative way. Also, it is called as treatment condition or factor. It is usually under the control of the researcher and typically is manipulated in an experiment. Let's take an example. A manager believes that good supervision and training would increase the production level of the workers. Define the variables. Okay, before we identify the independent variable, from this example, it is easier for us to firstly identify the dependent variable that becomes the concern of the researcher. In this case, I propose the dependent variable of production level of the workers. As for the independent variable or variables is the one that influence the production level. There are quality of supervision and quality of training. Easy, right? Now let's move to the optional variables. Moderating and intervening or mediating variable. To understand the moderating and intervening variable, let's use an illustration. A prevalent theory is that workforce diversity contributes positively to organizational effectiveness. People with different ethnics, races, nationalities bring their special expertise and skills to the workforce. However, such expertise and skills remain untapped unless the managers know how to encourage and coordinate the talents of the various groups to make things work. In other words, the effective utilization of different talents and perspective and electric problem-solving capabilities for enhanced organizational effectiveness is contingent on the skill of managers in acting as catalysts. This managerial expertise then becomes the moderating variable. The moderating variables modify the original relationship between independent and dependent variables. In a simpler way, I considered it as a catalyst, which can boost or hinder the effect of independent variable towards the dependent variable. Let's say that managers know how to encourage and coordinate the talents of various groups. It doesn't necessarily make the group work effectively. Creative synergy needs to emerge in the process. This creative synergy results from the interaction of multi-ethnic, multiracial, and multinational workforce and bring together their multifaceted expertise in problem solving. The creative synergy helps us to conceptualize and understand how workforce diversity brings about organizational effectiveness. This creative synergy plays as an intervening or mediating variable, the variable that surveys as a function of independent variables and helps to conceptualize and explain the influence of independent variables on the dependent variables. In my perspective, this variable has a role as an enabler. However, as you can see in the model, that creative synergy will not result from multifaceted problem-solving skills of the diverse workforce unless the manager is capable of harnessing that synergy by creatively coordinating the different skills. If the manager lacks the expertise to perform this role, then no matter how many different problem-solving skills the diverse workforce might have, synergy will not surface. Instead of functioning effectively, the organization might just remain static and even deteriorate. This is the end of the video. I expect that you've understood what a variable means and what the different types of variables are. See you in the next video.